Afternoon everyone. This video is the first in a series called Know Your Character. The name may change later on, but for now we're sticking with that, where I'll be taking various characters from Marvel and DC comic books and kind of sharing my love and some information about them really. So I'll be talking a little about their creation, a bit of their publication history, key relationships, so friendships or romance, and kind of breaking down their powers a little bit. And kicking off the list is a fan favourite X-Men member, Kitty Pryde, which was ultimately decided in a group vote in part of a big group that I'm in. And she's just a big favourite among comic fans in general as well. She's like a defining member of the X-Men, so it's a good place to start really. So diving straight in, Kitty Pryde was created by writer Chris Claremont and artist John Byrne in 1980, and her debut appearance was in Uncanny X-Men 129 in 1980. A fun fact about the character, about the name itself actually, is that she's named after a real person. While John Byrne was in art school, he met another art student, who had the name Kitty Pryde, and he said he liked the name so much that one day he would name a comic character after it, and he did. And ultimately, the real person who it was has changed their name now, so they're not called Kitty Pryde anymore. But that's just a fact about the character I really like, and it kind of adds that little bit of personality from the kind of creators into the character that they've made. I always like it when I hear stories about that sort of thing. So, Kitty Pryde was born in Deerfield, Illinois, and she actually discovered her powers by accident, as with a lot of mutants. Not all, as in the case, happened, but a lot of them did. And she basically started getting migraines that would last for days and cause immense pain in her head. And one day she phased from lying on her bed down to the floor below, so not just the floor under her bed, like the entire next story below. And Kitty was highly sought after. She was wanted by both Professor X and Emma Frost to join each of their respective teams and organizations, so Professor X and the X-Men, and Emma Frost and the Hellfire Club. Kitty chose Professor X and the X-Men, and she bonded really quickly with Storm, who actually gave her first code name of Sprite. He didn't stick very long, but it's kind of cool that she got her first kind of name from another team member. And Kitty's parents wanted her to stay with them, as I think a lot of parents would for like an almost 14-year-old daughter. Like, she wasn't even 14 years old at this point, she was about 13 and a half. I think she said something about that in one of the comics she's in. And then, pretty much without much thought at all, Jean Grey basically just wiped her parents' memories and replaced them with new ones. And Charles was completely fine with this, by the way. Jean and Charles have actually both done some pretty sketchy, shady stuff in the comics, especially in the earlier comics. That's definitely something I'm going to touch upon in a future video. But yeah, this and that happened, and then Kitty was free to now join the X-Men, and she did join, and she became one of the youngest members ever. I think she still is the youngest member to ever join the team at like 13 and a half, 14 years old. Originally, when I was planning these videos, I thought I was going to explore some of their major story arcs in the videos, but I've decided against it, and I'll instead later down the line do some story breakdowns of kind of like key events and stories for individual characters and teams. But if I was to add those into these videos as well, they would make them like half an hour long videos, and I'm trying to keep them relatively short as well because the channel's still quite new. But I'm still going to talk about their abilities, skills, and key relationships in their lives, starting with relationships. So Kitty Pryde has had a few key relationships in her life. She's actually had a few kind of on and off romances and a few friendships which potentially could have grown into romances that weren't hinted. And pretty much every single X-Men member has had at least two partners. There aren't many that have had less than, like, I've just had one. But in regards to the key relationships in her life, firstly is actually an alien dragon called Lockheed, and she befriended this dragon in one of the earlier missions. And actually, well, I think it was her first mission in the X-Men. They went to space, and they developed a psychic bond, and they've actually become inseparable, and Lockheed pretty much goes with her on all of her missions now, and they spend a lot of time together. In terms of romantic partners, there's been a few. So she was briefly with an ultimate version of Peter Parker, and also with a MI6 mutant agent called Pete Wisdom. But in terms of long-lasting relationships, firstly, and probably her most iconic one, was fellow X-Men member Colossus. Their relationship became iconic quite quickly after a few early bumps. So they were together, then they split up, and they got back together again, and that kind of became really confusing later on when Colossus died and then came back, and there was all kinds of complications. But that was probably her most iconic relationship. She was also with Bobby Drake, aka Iceman, for a while. Not a long time, but quite a long time. But they broke up. Ultimately, the relationship never really formed into anything kind of a bond that would last a long time. And Iceman's gay in the comics now as well, so for one reason or another, that's kind of probably good. That relationship didn't last too much longer. And her most kind of recent long-standing relationship is Star-Lord, actually, where they met when in space, and they kind of kicked off a friendship and then developed into a relationship. And Star-Lord even proposed to Kitty, and she said yes, but for one reason or another, the relationship didn't. It's kind of stalled a bit now, and there's still feelings very much for each other, but they haven't really seen each other in a long time. But Kitty was also in the Guardians of the Galaxy. She actually led them at one point. She kind of joined as Star-Lord, because it's just a title, it's not like the person. But yeah, the relationship didn't come to anything more than that, although the feelings are definitely still there. Now we're going to move on to the powers section, and Kitty's powers are really interesting. I have a tendency to kind of go off the deep end with stuff like this when I'm talking about stuff I'm interested in. It's one of my favourite things to talk about among fans, like comic characters' powers and how they use them and their enemies and all this kind of stuff. So kind of just bear with me. Kitty, in a nutshell, she has the ability to phase or pass through solid matter. She does this by allowing the molecules of her body to travel through the space between the molecules of whatever she's travelling through. Sounds a bit like a tongue twister there. She can also render other people and objects intangible by touching them. So like, if she was to grab me and walk through a wall, I would walk through the wall with her. And she can do it with pretty much all substances. However, when she goes through particularly dense materials, like let's just say adamantium in this case, she experiences pain and disorientation. So if she was going through kind of maybe just like a wall of adamantium, she'd get like pains and headaches and stuff. But if she was going through maybe like a kind of building amount worth of adamantium, she may even like break down her panic attacks and potentially seizures as well. It's never been truly documented kind of the extent of how much pain she goes through per amount of object, but adamantium is one of the materials she has trouble with. Vibranium is probably up there as well. This would give people like X-Men members Wolverine and X-23 a distinct advantage against her. I mean, they're not as if they weren't dangerous enough already, but she's also capable of killing another person by phasing them. So she could like take someone and phase them into a wall and then let go of them, and then they'd basically be stuck there, or she'd cause them to solidify while within the object, like become part of the wall. And the passing through objects thing gets even more interesting when you examine it in other applications. She can disrupt electronic devices by passing through them in this manner without causing harm to herself. And even when she uses the ability in the opposite direction, she can kind of levitate herself by walking on air. And somewhere in an X-Men book, it's explained, the science of this is explained to do with electrons and neutrons and spinning it, but I can't remember that. And even if I could, that would bore a lot of people, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. But on top of that, she's also multilingual. She speaks fluent Russian, German, Japanese, and even the language of the Skrulls and the Shi'ar. She's been in space a couple of times with the X-Men and Guardians of the Galaxy, so it helps to talk alien languages. She's an expert pilot. She's a proven leader. She's actually been a leader of 7 different teams. Obviously, Guardians of the Galaxy, the X-Men, there's other ones as well, but I might leave that for now and talk about that at a later time when I talk about kind of key stories like I mentioned earlier. She's pretty good at martial arts, to be fair. I mean, she's received training in martial arts from Cyclops and Nightcrawler, and she's also received training from Wolverine and Gambit with like bow staff and swords, and last but not least, she is an expert dancer. I believe it always helps no matter where you go. So that's it really. That's like I don't want to come to a bit of an abrupt end, but that's my breakdown of Kitty Pryde in my first Know Your Character video. I hope you enjoyed it. It's pretty nice actually talking about something I love, being able to like share the information and kind of hopefully my passions come through, even though it's quite hard sometimes when you're almost talking to yourself. And lastly, before I kind of end the video, Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. When I reach my first kind of milestone, as it were, of 50 subscribers, I'm going to be doing a comic giveaway. It'll be a signed X-Men comic. Probably not signed by anyone too famous, like Stan Lee or something, but you know, it'll be like just a nice giveaway, as it were. So if you know anyone that might be interested, get them to subscribe, because it will involve subscribing to the channel. And finally, before I go, as I put in all 3 of my videos so far, for every 50 subscribers I get, I'm going to donate £10 to Mind. And on top of that as well, when I get to every 100, I'm going to donate an extra £10 as well. So that's, you know, something to